All right, welcome back to another Mind Brain Movies. I'm your Sherpa into the Mind Brain Hope. And today I have with me my lovely ladies as usual. I have Boone, or as she told me to write on all future mail, Boony Boon Boom Boon.
Yeah, that's me.
And, and I also have Elizabeth, who is going to be. She's going to cause me to have sessions with her because she gives me all my issues. Uh,
It's not me, I swear. It's technology. It just doesn't like me, all right? It's not my fault.
So that's how you keep like a solid clientele. You like drive them crazy and bring them back to you. So it's work security. Is that it?
No. The point is to
Wow.
never see my
I see your
because you're
plan.
doing so well.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
You know what I'm gonna
So
send you? I'm gonna send you one of these squishy balls every time you have to talk to me. You're just like,
You're gonna have like a
oh
whole bunch in the background.
I literally have like 50 squishies right in front of me at all times because of that.
I have one too. I'm gonna bring mine out.
Like um I have a little puppy one. I have an octopus one.
oh.
I have my favorite. I have a dick butt one. And then I have my tardigrade.
Aw, cute.
So I always am set up. And today we're all on the same page. We all watched the movie together, so we're going to be prepared to talk about it. And speaking of the movie, we are going to be talking about a cultural icon here, Mr. Rogers. And we're going to be talking about the documentary, Won't You Be My Neighbor? So the documentary came out in 2018. It's actually like one of the highest grossing documentaries. It's amazing. Like I said, Mr. Rogers has been an icon and legend since the 60s. So it's been, gosh, like damn near 60 years, And
Wait, is that what
it's,
started the show in the '60s?
yeah.
Wow.
Did we not watch the same
I love that we
documentary
watched
here?
this, and
Well, listen.
I have lots of questions too about the show. Don't worry about it.
It was actually your idea, Elizabeth, to talk about Mr. Rogers. So I actually let's dive in. Like, so what was your thinking with talking about Mr. Rogers and
Well,
Won't You Be My Neighbor?
I think last time we talked about a lot of what was going wrong with the mental health field, and I was like, we just need something happy. I feel like we should talk about like what is going right, what we can do, and like especially now because I feel like we haven't completely gotten over like COVID times. You know, we're still feeling some of the effects of it, especially when it comes to sort of like our mental health and like going back to normal. Like normal is not really normal anymore, and yeah, I was like just, and I just remember there was this one quote. I've never heard him say it because I've seen just a handful of his like of the show, and that's sort of like about it. I watched the movie with Tom Hanks in it, but like again, that's like about it. But there's this quote that I absolutely love where he talks about like when when there's like in times of like can't remember the exact quote. Great. Like, but in times of like distress, look for the helpers, the people that are helping, because we oftentimes focus on what's going wrong with our lives. Wait, hold on. Let me kick my dogs out because they're being very, very annoying. Get out! Get out! Get out! Get out! 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 Out!
Your life is just chaos.
Really, really is.
So yes,
And as I was saying earlier, our dynamic is that I apparently am the Mr. Rogers. Elizabeth is the child on my show that I'm talking to, and Boone is the parent at home saying, "Thank God my kid has something to watch for the next half hour." Um, so that's our dynamic, guys. Yay!
I feel like I feel like Boone is like, yeah. Hope feels what I am thinking and feeling at all times
And I
when
and
interacting with
ironically
Elizabeth.
and ironically speaking, I am like the least qualified of us two, which I find hysterical.
Oh no,
My
you got
knowledge
it.
comes from practical experience. Like my knowledge comes from practical experience, not pieces of paper, because I have none of those bitches.
No, we can pull that out. No problem. You got it.
No, and you know what? I feel like so this is something that I constantly tell my brother because anytime I come back from therapy and I'm like, hey, guess what I learned today about myself? Or like anytime I'm like trying to process something or like reflect on something, I'm always like, hey, let me talk at you for a little bit. And I think all the times I just like find something interesting that has to be like that has to do with like mental health. He's probably like a master level clinician by now because I just like talk his ear off and like every time
Yeah.
I'm like, hey David, can you give me some advice on like, you know, X, Y, or Z or whatever? And then he'll be like, oh, I don't know anything, like you're the one, you're the therapist or whatever. And then he'll like say something and I'm like, genius. Like that is so good because again, like all his, like you said, like lived in experience that counts because if you've gone through like stages of growth, you're able to provide that for another person, right? You're able to better guide and support another person when you've experienced it yourself. And
It's
that's
so
why it's
true.
important for therapists to have their own therapist.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm. It's so true. Um, so like you said, apparently Boone also didn't really have much background with Mr. Rogers. So I know, and I know I didn't either myself. Um, so, but we were talking about this before we started recording. Like, despite the three of us not having been like avid watchers or anything like that, we all know of him. We all think he is like a very impactful cultural icon, and we still appreciate what he's done. And watching this documentary even shows more so what he's done, and it's crazy. And Boone, what was your takeaway after seeing the documentary when we watched it? Other, like, is there what was like the biggest things you were like, oh, I didn't even realize, other than the fact it was been on since the 60s?
Mm,
Wait,
maybe
his
not.
name is Mr. Rogers? Sorry.
God damn it!
sorry,
um,
sorry.
is that really his name? No. Okay. So, I guess it's not like a new realization, but kind of compounding why something's important.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand why we don't focus on good news and promote the helpers when there are so many in our society. The one big
Yeah.
question I keep having is like, why do we promote certain people to be like the one responsible for everything when there's like thousands underneath who are as qualified to do the same thing when we can help more people in that way if we break down the
Mm-hmm.
task? So, like, I'm sure he felt very burdened and again that responsibility to do so much because people kept on going to him. I just don't understand that part of society and media where we highlight and uplift. He's untouchable now. No one else can help. We have to go to him to make the
Right.
special on TV because kids are listening. Like that's it makes sense at the same time. It's a burden and really for me it doesn't sound productive to do that.
Right, because if you do too much all on one person, then like you're saying you, like you just said, you can't go to anybody else.
Hmm.
It's like that gift and a curse type of deal. Like he reached out and touched so many kids' lives, he could talk about the good, he could talk about the bad, and it was because he was so open and welcoming that they wanted him. Like, when perfect examples were when the space shuttle, crashed. He did a special on that. When
Mhm.
9/11 happened, he did a special on that because he was saying, like, look, like, this is real, this is happening. It's okay to be sad. It's okay. And that's what I loved about him too. He always said,
Mhm.
it's okay to be sad. It's
Yeah.
okay to feel your feelings. You're okay being you.
Mhm.
And it's like, you don't have too many things, maybe more so now within very, very recent years. But for the longest time, you didn't have that at all.
Well,
Like,
did we
no one.
though? Because I think like Boone is correct, and this is kind of like fits into a conversation that we had after we watched it, where we were like, okay, so he is like you said, like this icon, and we don't have anyone who has taken his place. Why don't we have anyone who has taken his place?
Mhm.
Right.
It's not because nobody else is trying, nobody else is working on it. I think part of it may be because eh, it might be saturated. There's a lot of us that are like on social media, so it's harder. And he
It's
was
a
sort of like,
different technology. Yeah.
yeah, it like it wasn't easier for him. But if he was sort of like the first one, like the pioneer, the one that started it,
Mhm.
um,
Mm.
and back then we didn't have like TV was the only thing. Now you have Netflix and Disney Plus, and you have so many things. So like even if you're in one of them, you're not reaching potentially as many people as you could back in
Yeah.
the day. But it doesn't mean that we don't have
Yeah. There was like
other.
5 channels on the TV, and that's it,
Mhm.
Yes, yes, and even less for kids, like even less content that kids could see. And sometimes I do hear like online parents complaining about how, or even just as adults, we're like, oh, the cartoons that are coming out now, they're not what they used to be. Because
Hmm.
I could be totally biased, but when I was growing up, I felt like the cartoons had like a very deep storyline. It wasn't all like flashing lights and like just really funny bits. um Also, I am not really keeping up with the latest cartoons or like things for kids, so I could be completely wrong about this as well, because I know.
There's a handful. Like, I would say special mentions of more modern cartoons would be like Steven Universe, Adventure
Mm.
Time,
I love
um,
them.
Owl House, I think, is
Oh,
one of
those are good.
them. Yeah, so I like those are good honorable mentions where I'd say they tackle really heavy topics and issues. Um, but overall, no, there's not too it's not as much out there. But where I'm also not sure because I'm also not like watching Nick Jr. right now like I would have been like 30 years ago, So
I want someone to do a study. Here's my proposal. Take like each decade and look at how many sort of like very inspirational and helpful cartoons with like a good story that that really actually touch people were compared to the cartoons that didn't. I think that would be interesting to know because I think about a few weeks ago, I saw a comment about why there's so many anime that are all about like uh, basically like just there's more hentai, there's more uh, things that
oh,
are
the
not.
isekai and hentai is like so out there now.
Yeah,
Really?
but then I'm
That
like,
is so
okay, well,
weird.
one, we go through stages of what is like new and what we're hyping up, uh, and then we use that until like everybody gets so bored of it that we're like starting something new. We just go back to like a different genre or like a different style. But I'm like, but I don't necessarily think there weren't enough cartoons for kids or like anime for kids. It wasn't all hentai. It's just it was harder to find back in the day, and now it's easier. It's easier to
Mhm.
access, especially as adults. We have
Oh yeah.
more access to it, so it may seem like there's more of that, but not really. It's always there. It's just easier to access. Um, so yeah, but there does have to be a change. I would think this is something that all countries, not just the US, are sort of like should consider. Because, like Boone was saying earlier, like we sometimes tend to focus on people who are not the best influence, and recognize
Right. There's
them
so many
immensely.
like influencers out there. I was actually just talking with my coworker about this, how the Paul brothers, can't stand them, but they never drop in subscribers and viewerships despite like the problematic and the chaos and the drama. Like they just always keep increasing. And the more people I talk to, they're like, "Yeah, I can't stand them." And I'm like, if there's so many of us, then why are they still doing so good, you know?
Mhm.
And then I was like, yeah, and then I'm over here with my little podcast, and we have our handful of loyal people, but it's not like a viral expansion like they are, you know? And it's crazy because it's like people are attracted to the chaos, so to say, you know, and it's not as much as the warm wholesomeness as we would like to have.
I think
I have
there's
an
this
answer
like.
for that.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Oh, so there's this thing called the compulsion to repeat the trauma. It's coined by Bessel van der Kolk, right, in the 80s, and
Mhm.
he was like one of the grandpas of what trauma looks like in the body now. And if you apply that to society, we are inclined to repeat the traumas in lived experiences to regain a sense of control, to repeat a cycle or some feeling. So we're going towards the trauma and the chaos in the consumption of media in the relationships that we have. And instead of going towards healing and growth, which is very calm and boring, we're not ready to do that because we need to repeat cycles of trauma a little bit more before we feel like we've gone through it enough times before our brain is like stabilized. But because
Right.
we don't know the intention of what we're doing, we're re-traumatizing ourselves to keep a dysregulated nervous system. And so society is like harming itself over and over again. And I want to go back to like the comment that Liz made about COVID times. That's exactly what happened. So there's a spike, right? Or repetition of the trauma because we're not acknowledging that society as a whole got traumatized and said, no, the kids just don't
Mhm.
have any attention span. No, they're just not learning social skills because, you know, they should be learning it by now. You know, we've been out of COVID for whatever. Like, and so actually trying to cope through a trauma that they have no language to identify or name. So this is why like there's that going towards your own crisis and chaos because you actually unconsciously know that you need to sort it out. But we don't actually know it because we don't know the names for things because the helpers aren't out there naming these things. Okay, anyway, so
This is why we need Mr. Rogers right now.
actually, I was going to say Blue's Clues, like any Blue's Clues and Bluey, like that kind of.
Mm,
Is that the name of the dog right now? I don't even know. What's
yeah,
the name of the?
Bluey.
Yeah,
It's Bluey, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
It's
That dog.
Australian cartoon.
I
Yeah.
think it also too there is, uh, in addition to what Boone was saying, we are comfortable in our misery, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah.
if
Mhm.
mystery it's all we have ever known, chaos and conflict and all of these things, we become comfortable and almost like immune to it. Like think because, for example, like the siblings that you were talking about, or well, I don't know. Actually, I don't know anything about them, but I think it's sort of like the same sort of process that happens
At
when
first I was like, my siblings, what?
no, the YouTubers, I guess, as they
Yeah,
play.
yeah, yeah.
uh, Even if there's so much drama and like illegal things that I don't know what they do, but let's say there is like illegal things and unethical things that happen, eventually we get desensitized to that, like, oh well, it's
Mhm.
just them again, whatever, it doesn't matter, but I really like the rest of the content, so it's fine. Or like, oh, it's just really funny, it's not happening to me, or it's not affecting me personally, so it's fine.
Right.
And it for example, if with the Me Too movement that happened, there was a lot of people that started coming out and telling their own stories once they realized that it was possible for them to do that. that some people at least were willing to listen. But I can imagine that there's still a lot of people out there who still are surrounded by a lot of negative voices saying your story doesn't matter, or like you're just one in a million, like just get over it, get used to it, it was a long time ago, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, but that's still like impactful, and it's still uh just because it's not new and it's like a trauma that everybody experienced doesn't reduce the legitimacy of like that experience, right? So let's
Yeah.
say we all experience or lived through a natural disaster, um, and it was like 3 years ago, and it's still affecting me, but you guys are completely fine. That doesn't, like, a lot of people feel invalidated by that, or they
Mm-hmm.
or automatic reaction sometimes, or like or reflexive reaction is to be like, oh, that was a long time ago, get over it. Like there's other things that need to be taken care of. But I'm like, but no, I still need help, I still need to process this, it's still really fresh for me. uh
Mm.
so yeah, it just, yeah, it doesn't really
Yeah.
matter.
No, I think that's why we do need such impactful people though, like Mr. Rogers, because he would sit down and say, "Hey, look, you are good how you are with your anger, with your sadness, with all that you're feeling. Don't change. Be who you are. I'm going to sit here. I'm going to help you work through this. I know it's tough." I think he was one of the first people to actually say it's okay to cry. It's okay to feel anger. Let's sit down and work through it though. And not only that, but he would reach out to so many different can we talk about how many communities he reached?
Mm.
Like the impactfulness of how he was breaking down like the color barriers. He's breaking down the LGBTQ barriers. He was like the I think one of the most impactful scenes was when he's like in the pool. He's like, "It's a hot summer day. I'm just cooling off my
Mhm.
feet."
Mhm.
And he has first off, it was uh Mr. Clemens. He just wanted to he had him play like a police officer, which I thought was kind of funny. So it's this gay black man playing this police officer on Mr. Rogers' show. And then but he sat down in this pool with him and like cooled off his feet with Mr. Rogers, and that was like breaking barriers right then and there. And the thing is, Mr. Rogers was just so supportive. He's like, "I don't care. This is my show. Like,
Mhm.
this is how society should be."
Mhm.
Um, I also want to bring up how I loved that he was a pastor, and despite him having such a high religious background, he still didn't act like some of the religious nuts out there. He's like, I love you. Like, I love you even though you're gay. I love you even though this. And that's how religion and everything should be. You're supposed to accept it. You are not the one to judge. You're just supposed to accept and love your fellow man.
And you know why I think that was possible for him to do that? Because he was constantly working on himself to improve himself, right?
Mhm.
Might have been for religious purposes, but he was like, he didn't start like out of nowhere. He took classes in order to understand kids better. He took, like,
Yes.
he made those attempts, right? And he was very concerned about, or very careful about the words that he chose. um, and even when he found out that the actor that played the policeman was gay, and I think he was even saying that the actor was saying that he was told never to like frequent like gay bars or anything like that because people might find out. His and For a while he felt like really bad, like he had to hide that part of himself. And from my understanding, please correct me if I'm wrong, but from my
Mhm.
understanding, it took Mr. Rogers some time to fully understand the situation. And then that's when he started saying that I love you to him, right? Until he finally heard it.
So it was Mr. Rogers. yes, I would say it took him time to understand, so to say, but it was more so at the end of the day, Mr. Rogers had the show for the kids, not for that adult in particular.
Mhm.
So he was like, "Yes, I love and support you in your personal decision, but if we want to keep doing this good thing for all these kids, we have to just like avoid that for now because I don't want any scandal."
So yeah,
And
um,
it wasn't until later on that it started to become normal, so to say, to be in that community that he was more accepting of it. So Mr. Rogers, while he personally accepted him, he was still like, all right, I get it, but like keep it on the DL, you know? So and it was kind of like it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, it's kind of fucked up, but at the same time it's like, yeah, I get it. It's like it's kind of like the classic ethics problem. Do you kill one person to save 20, you know?
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
well, I mean, yeah, that's kind of what I meant. Like maybe he, because again, he wasn't like Boone was saying it earlier, like it must have been really hard for him because a lot of people looked up to him and sort of expected
mhm,
him to have all the answers. But he was only human.
right.
He didn't. And I mean, it took him a while sometimes to figure out the answer or like to know what to do. But the one thing that he never changed was providing that safe space for everyone, right? He
Yes.
didn't contact connections with him. He didn't like stop being friends with this actor. He was still there and supporting him, and
Mhm.
everything. It's just, he and that, like, that was okay, right? Like he just didn't know what to do, and like you said, the show wasn't about that. The show was about something different. So he couldn't do everything, he couldn't take up every single cause out there because that's impossible. But sometimes that's what we expect uh people who are kind to take up every single cause out there and do something for everyone. And I'm like, that's impossible. That's a huge
That is
burden.
impossible. Yeah, I mean, I would love to say like, yeah, let me do everything for everyone, but it's like one, that's like you said, that's physically impossible. And two, even if you attempted, you would destroy yourself. I know like Mr. Rogers he in the documentary it stated like he had to take a break because he was writing, producing, acting, script writing, reaching out to all these guests and actors and everything. Like he literally was doing everything on top of going to CEUs, learning, taking care of his family. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm burnt out." And I'm like, "No wonder you're burnt out. God damn, man." Like and I think that in and of itself is an important lesson too because he's like, "Yeah, I'm taking a step back." And not everyone knows, yeah, you can take a step back. It's okay. Like we're not going to attack you or punish you for that. Um
Do you
and
think
now me saying this, I know I'm a total goddamn hypocrite for saying this because I just not even a month ago yet, I had major surgery and my mom was here and she's like, "Let me help you." I'm like, "No, I got this." And she's like, "Hope, you're going to rip your stitches. Let me do this." I'm like, "Oh, yeah." Like cuz I have issues with stepping back myself. I know I do. So like it's it's important to know. And maybe sometimes you do need someone like my mom yelling at you and smacking you and saying, "Sit the fuck down," So,
do you think it would have been a good idea for someone to take over his show once he ended?
Yes.
I think so. Not only for his personal health and well-being, but we never had someone to like carry the mantle. We had no one to pass the torch, and now look at us. Now we're like, oh, we needed a Mr. Rogers. Oh, we need this, we need that, and there is nothing. So like, What's your take on this, Boone?
I was gonna say I think he's a social too, like your type. That's why you resonate with him so much. I think it's funny. Um, uh, I want to backtrack a little bit. I just wanted to comment also like the way he gives love. It reminds me of
Mm-hmm.
like genuine, compassionate love, like a
Yes.
what you would want your God to do. So I think he
Right.
understood and translated the scripture very, very well. Instead of people who were like at the end, I just got so upset for him. I felt my disappointment in society just came out where they were hating on him. Like he couldn't even rest in peace because they were saying that just because he supported gay people, it's like,
Oh, I know. And to see his sons on the documentary like break down because they're like, that was our dad. He did
I
nothing but
know.
love.
Yep. Like
And
you get when people can't face the person, like when you're dead is when you speak up, right? Okay, sure. Like
right.
you have all this resentment for someone loving. So like again, that's your shadow of like because you can't go there. You can't imagine being able to accept and love people as there are. So you spew it out as hatred. That's your own
Hmm.
personal work. But shame on you. Shame on you for doing that.
Yeah, how dare.
Mhm.
Well, I want to play devil's advocate and say that I don't think it would have been a good idea for someone to take over his show because
Hmm?
that person
Really?
would have, to the end of time, been compared to Mr. Rogers. And you can't do that. I think it would have been a good idea for that show to be replaced with something similar, but maybe that was sort
Okay.
of like in a different style, not so much with like the same puppets and stuff, or the same things. And I think they kind of did try to do that with Daniel Tiger. I think it's a cartoon.
With
Because it
who?
is his character. His character is Daniel Tiger.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah, I was about to say, yeah. Like,
yeah. I think they tried to bring it back, but I don't know enough about it to say it didn't have as big of an impact as Mr. Rogers, but it's not one of those cartoons that we continually talk about, right? Because there,
hmm.
again, there's so much, we're like saturated with so many things now that we constantly sort of like forget. But even when we were like earlier, we were saying, hey, we never really seen it, but we know a bunch of people that had, a bunch of people that loved him, and everything. Like like I started liking him because of that one quote, right? And I see a bunch of
Hmm.
like really amazing quotes that I can connect to, and I really um like, and I never really heard him speak it or anything like that, but like his legacy is so big because like you guys were saying, like he works so hard to make this happen. And nowadays, uh, okay, not to get political, but let's get
Oh
political.
God.
That
Oh
scene
God.
when he went to testify in front of Congress and Congress was like,
Yes.
yeah, you're right, I was like, that would never happen now.
Yeah, if you weren't gonna mention that specific part of the documentary, I was, because I know all three of us, because we watched this together. All three of us at that point were like, "Is this real?" Like, because he went to Congress, he spoke, and he broke down like the most right winged Republican to be like, "Oh shit, you're right. Cool, you have your funding," and it's like the arts got funding. They listened. Oh my gosh, like, I was jumping for joy, and it wasn't even, like, affecting me, I was like, "Yes!"
And sadly, like the not necessarily just politics, but everything um that feeds into it has changed, and not necessarily for the better, right? It just
Mhm,
become a lot more complicated, where because I've seen like some senators talk about how behind closed doors they all sort of like agree with each other, but because they're being backed by people with big money, or because of their constituents are, uh, they can't really make certain decisions, right? um, So I'm like, wait, what do you mean you can't? And I'm like, yeah, you totally can. But like,
Right.
there's so much now that has come into play, and I think it's sad to say, but money really has ruined a lot of things because um,
Yeah,
when
make
you
super
get
PACs illegal.
what?
Sorry.
Mo- uh, monopolies don't exist. Wink, wink.
No, but even if you
Disney
consider,
is
let's
not the
say,
all-seeing,
for example,
all ruler of the world.
don't say
Blackstone.
that. There'll be horrible consequences. I was like keep in one
Right.
piece.
I'm
I
gonna
hope
get
I'm not
taken out.
helping.
See you guys. Um, Go on, Liz.
um, but like, let's say like a person gets like super famous on Instagram, or wait, what's it, TikTok, right? And they build a community, and eventually, in some way or another, they experience that push of your audience expects you to be this person and create this type of content, so that's how you have to do. And if you deviate from that, it's you start losing. And if that's your
Mhm.
livelihood, like sometimes you can't do that, right? And then so, okay, I have like an idea, but I wanted to hear like from you guys.
I was about to say, Boone, you look like you're about to like jump out of your seat if you
Okay,
don't speak.
so like I have some thoughts. So I used to follow Sam Harris a lot. Um, he's this atheist with a spiritual lens on what he talks about, philosophy, current news, and things about faith. Um, so there's this one thing he talked about how with the mythology of the current times, things that last longer just last longer because they were pumped out first. You because it's in the zeitgeist longer. That's just how like
Right.
religion is so impactful because it just exists longer. You can't challenge it. That's why when I think you talk about Mr. Rogers having someone inherit the thing because he has a legacy and a mythology already, we don't have to start something from scratch where you have to buy into believing it. The community is already
Right.
there, the connections there, the roots are there. So like if even if you had to like it's like trying to make a new religion. It's the same thing. It's harder to get people to buy into the cult, the faith practices, even though it's perfect, it's great. We learn from the mistakes, but you take it's like propaganda. It's like propaganda. You have to take from what people know. And so you use that and then redo it ever so slowly in your own way, but like using the same verbatim or something that's like seamlessly transforms. Like, wait a minute, this is something that Mr. Rogers used to do, but now you're doing it like this. But because the association has already been made, that emotional commitment and contact has already been historically connected, you have a way of like getting people to build a bigger community faster than if you had to start from the beginning. So that's why
Why are
racism
I'm
you
just
and
calling
getting
me
over
out,
like
Boone?
positive
Why are you
propaganda.
calling me out
Like
on this?
it is
No, no,
positive
because like I
propaganda.
completely agree with you, and let me tell you why. I created I
you
created
changed
a
my mind, and
post.
here's why.
I created a post for social media to advertise um, this episode, and I talk about how he created this amazing sort of like legacy, and nobody can compare. But there are a lot of people who are trying to do the same, and that's when I plugged in my nonprofit. So I am doing
Yeah.
exactly what you
Yeah.
said.
So exactly, you make the connection. That's exactly you're inceptioning people. People don't know
Yeah.
you yet, but they know Mr. Rogers. So that's
Yeah,
exactly how good propaganda works in that way. And so
yeah.
like the next thing I was going to talk about what were you saying? I didn't want to go onto the path of like, oh yeah, so when he was being interrogated by people like you're making the next generation soft. That's what like the argument was.
Oh my god,
So
that pissed me off beyond belief
Mhm.
because not to cut you off, but like
No, go ahead.
my little snippet is he's like, oh yeah, he was saying like, oh, we got our blah blah blah, making like you said, making them soft, and I'm like, no. There's a difference between everyone's a winner
Mhm.
and everyone is
Yes.
special because they're their own person.
Yes.
You know, he was not the one giving out trophies for participation. He was just saying,
Mhm.
"Hey, look, we don't have to be cookie cutters."
Yes.
And that's where it got skewed. And that
Mhm.
pissed me off because I'm like, he was just saying everyone's special. Like,
Well,
um,
I think his point didn't reflect with what society at large, and sadly still thinks.
Yes.
That
Yes.
what he was saying was that no matter what you do or what you're capable of, you matter and you have value.
Yes.
right.
And society doesn't believe that. Society is like, it all depends on what you can produce, on what you can do.
Right.
And that's sad.
Right. So
Dude,
because
it
of that,
is.
Go ahead.
yes, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing. That's all. No, you are literally about to like jump
Oh,
out of your
okay.
own skin if you don't
It-
talk.
So it goes back to the positive propaganda. So this is Liz. This is going to help your nonprofit too,
I'm
because
listening.
people have and think about intergenerational healing too. That's why I think it's important to pull the legacy forward. You can't just end it
Yes.
and have no transformation. So like because of what happened with him being interrogated and the misunderstanding within the cultural context of that generation, it's important to pull the message to the next generation where it has more meaning and time to flourish. So we're pulling in again the positive propaganda of his legacy. You get to take it and run with it. And he's your personality type. He's INFP. So like you can do that association too. He's both your types. He's a 2 and he's an INFP too. So like because of that, you have the association, you can use it to brand yourself and pull a whole generation that misunderstood what's happening to be like, hey, look, it was too early for that time. He was too ahead of his time. That's what most idealists and visionaries are.
Yeah.
We're too ahead of our time. So you have to keep on pulling and building with the foundation that he already built. Why start over and build a new foundation? It's already there. So pull it forward, build on top of it. And so now you have intergenerational healing, which is part of system psychology anyways. So that's what I wanted to
Yes.
say. I need to say it. Thank you.
No, and now I'm going to completely take over this podcast. Now it's the Help Elizabeth with her non-profit part of the episode.
Look,
No, 'cause I have this.
I already mentioned your nonprofit in my other podcasts, so
We need to continue mentioning it. No, but okay. So my question is, if somebody, because obviously I'm only one person. I can only reach so many people, right? If somebody else was interested in continuing his legacy, what would you say that they need to have or do in order to have that spirit? Not do the same things or like just like be like a copycat kind of thing, but what are like the essentials that one needs to have? What did he have that made such an impact on people?
Your dogs, dude. Like, damn.
yeah, I know you agree.
Passionate.
No, so Kit is for Mr. Rogers, man. He
Agrees with
is
us.
fucking for Rogers. Um, no, so what's funny is Kit's only vocal when we record this podcast. All my other ones, fucking silent. I don't know what it is.
He loves us,
But
that's why.
right, exactly. He loves my ladies. He hates guys. He's a ladies' man. That's what it is.
Aw.
But I think the biggest thing, what came down to it, is he did everything for the kids. It wasn't, hey, let me make this cartoon show for kids so I can get money and get fame. It was, let me do this for the kids. Everything was about the kids. I think like a good, like the people who I value most, like celebrity wise or anything today, is people who do a lot for kids. There's people like John Cena and Ryan Reynolds. They
Mm.
both those two have the highest number of like make a wishes and children's hospital visits and donations more than any other celebrity or person with clout or wealth. And I'm like, that's what you need to do. You need to reach out to the community. You need to reach out to these kids because that's what they need. If you show them, hey, I care, they will respond back in tenfold. I know um and it's just that community reach. Whereas nowadays we have celebrities and it's such like a gap between like, oh, I'm up here and you're down here. Like, oh, thank you, my fans, I love you. But like, when's the last time you actually sat down with them? Mr. Rogers had like an open call for his production, like random days of the month. And they were saying like the first time that happened, the line was miles down the road just to meet him. And he's like, this is for me, just to meet me. And it's because he reached out to those kids. That's what the next person, Kit! That's what the next person would need is that community outreach more so than anything because it was so unapologetically selfless, you know? There's I feel like there's always some sort of like motivation behind every like good deed nowadays. With him, it was just good deed for the good deed. And we need someone to continue that. We need someone to regulate that. We need someone to do that and say it's okay. I mean, that's just my 2 cents.
I'll score your response later. Boone?
I'm sorry.
What does that mean?
That
What does
was
that
so
mean?
good. You're so witty. Okay,
Just
uh
Am
I'll
I
do
like on a
Boone's like, I don't want to go anymore.
I'll
I'm
be
gonna hide in my hole now.
I'm gonna do a expected response. It's gonna be archetypal. So a person seeking to fulfill this next generational inheritance for the next journey,
Mhm.
like cycle. It's a transformed journey, new meaning of what he gave, right? Um, with the tools that he's given. I think it actually should be a woman. I think it should be a caring maternal archetype because we don't
Mhm.
have that. We never had that. We always have men in these roles of like LeVar Burton, for Reading Rainbow. Like we have like Crocodile Dude, like being kind to animals, being curious.
Bob Ross.
Right, it's all men, and I get it because we have on the everyday level, we have women caring as people, but we don't have it
Mhm.
elevated to a certain degree, which is like I think it should be flipped now because generationally,
Yes.
millennial men are stepping in to be great fathers. They're so much more domestic than any generation before, and so collectively, I think we need to flip it where men have had the role model and they've actually used it to grow and be great dads, great fathers, great role models. I see a lot of organizations run by men too to uplift. I just think that sometimes we miss the mark for honoring femininity in a higher scale because it's like so domestic, so mundane. We think like we celebrate women every day, right? Mother's Day, like I love my
Mhm.
mom kind of thing. Like, well, why don't we give someone who wants to be that collective archetypal mother a chance to
Right.
show it on TV or a show? Why don't we do that? That's what I think.
Honestly, that's a fantastic idea, especially with um if you look at trends now. So before, way back when, you had all of your doctors, psychologists, all that. They used to be men. But now as you see the time, it's
Mhm.
all shifting to women. Like you're more likely to see women in these workplaces than men. And it's that drastic shift. I know, and so I see that we're slowly doing that, and it's slowly the shift. Like you said, there's more like stay at home dads now instead of stay at home moms.
Mhm.
So we should embrace that. And I think, unfortunately, this is a whole other topic, but like the sexism, like, yeah, I know that there's the race issue, but like I feel like sexism is always going to be bigger because, especially if you have like a race and a minority, like I know it's like certain cultures, a man could be any color, any shape. He could be an alien and he's still the man. And then like the women are just like second tier. We still have that workplace inequality with the women versus men, it's so it's all this
But it's
thing
always
again,
it,
whole other topic, but
but it's always been a trend, right? Because if we think back to who started wearing heels first, who started using makeup
Mm,
first, it was men. They're the ones that
yeah,
popularized
everything
it.
gets
And then when
flipped.
you, yeah,
Shakespeare, man,
Hmm.
Shakespeare.
yeah, and then when you flipped, it for some reason just became, when women started using it, it just became less.
Devalued, right? Just like the helping fields,
Mhm.
teaching, nursing instead of a
Yep.
doctor, and then like helping fields. God, I don't want to talk
Yeah.
about that. Yeah.
But yeah, no,
Topic for another day.
I completely agree with you both in that term, yeah, in that sense where like connecting with the community is one of the things that we have. I don't know, for some reason we kind of forgot about it. Is even if we have a lot of providers in the area, for some reason everybody's sort of like in their own office. It's not, they're
Hmm.
not really like participating. There are very very few who do collaborate with like different organizations, or they try to do things for the community, but it's not that many of us. And I
Mm.
think part of the reason why I started Psychology for Geeks was because there wasn't enough mental health professionals who were trained in order to provide this information for people. It was somebody else,
Right.
other people learning this information, and then like not being trained in the field or anything, and then just sharing it online. And that's why I love doing panels with people. That's why I love doing this, because people need to be like, it's okay for you to talk, to step out of your office and like, do a podcast or like interact with people. You don't have to start it on your own. Just, maybe accept it when you are invited, or give your opinion of what really is happening. But so that's like a great one. I completely agree with Boone too, where we, because that was one of the things I was thinking as well. Like at that time, there was a huge need for a good father figure,
Hmm.
Mm.
and he was it for a lot of people. And because a lot of kiddos grew up with that great example, now we're seeing it more in like the newer generations, right? And then so it would be good for a mother figure to come. Not that we don't need good father figures anymore, because that's still a thing. We still need them. But I think one of the things that I thought was very impactful that he did is that he was very passionate about what he was doing. He firmly
Yes.
believed that this was what he was meant to do, and he found a way to make it possible. And
Mm.
that, I feel like that's like, now that I'm starting my own nonprofit, I'm like, oh, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. Just like my
There's
computer
so
wouldn't work earlier today. But and sometimes like all those obstacles like become so difficult for us. But the one thing that Mr. Roger had, he had a really amazing foundation. He was able to uh overcome any sort of obstacle. He was able to continue being passionate about it, regardless of what people said, or regardless of how really famous people were making fun of him, and the work that he did, and how he wasn't really respected at times. He had a good foundation, and I think that's what we need to, not only as someone who is trying to make a difference in our community, but or a mental health provider, but just as a person in general. We need to have a safe place to come home to. We need to have a supportive family that's there for us. We need to constantly think about how we can improve ourselves, have time to reflect. I was mind blown about the fact that he said that he was 143 pounds for like I don't know how many years, and I was like, dude, that is like magical. Like, how did you, like, yes, you achieve but how did you do this? Like that, no, like I cannot believe that. But like he just had like a routine. He was trying to be healthy, he was taking care of himself, and sometimes we forget that a lot of the times.
yeah, self-care is often overlooked a lot of the time, unfortunately. Again, I will be the first person to say I am awful at self-care.
And you know that book that I've never read, but people talk about all the time? The Body Keeps the Score. Uh, part of part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because I wanted to talk about how he had health problems, and I
Mhm.
Yeah.
believe a lot of those health problems came from the fact that he everyone placed so much responsibility on him, and I I would not have lasted. I would not have lasted as long as he did. And again, that's just amazing that he was able to continue doing what he believed was necessary and needed for the kids. Um, like that role and having that responsibility and not being able to share with anyone because it's different, like there's three of us, so nobody has to like constantly worry about having to talk, even though I could happily just talk nonsense all day.
Right.
um but it's better, but he was by himself, like Boone mentioned. He was writing, he was producing, he was acting, he was doing everything.
So that's like the supplement of the generational twist on it. He did it on his own because he had a vision and he didn't know if anyone else could do it because they burdened him only, even if
Mhm.
even if there were people available. The gift of now is like we probably all of us together know hundreds and hundreds of helpers who don't mind the spotlight, right? And so we can collaborate, each sharing our individual gifts where we don't feel like I'm not so good at this, but I have to do it anyways. No, you find someone who's good at this, they do this. You find someone good at that, they do that. And then collectively, we're helping people. And that's like taking a snippet of the burden. Oh, I want to use this metaphor. I just made a video about this, like about chunking things. So like my question to you is like, how do you eat a pizza?
Slice by slice.
I don't because I can't eat dairy.
How do you eat a food that you like?
How do you eat non-cheese pizza?
How do I eat bread?
Yes.
Sure. How do you eat bread?
Um, as much and as much as possible because I love bread.
Okay, so it doesn't work for you. The answer is one bite at a time.
So wrong.
I didn't know you could be incorrect with this, but the answer is one bite at a time.
You're welcome.
Okay, so yeah, it's kind of like that where we can, again, learn from his lessons, dissect it, really use it as a case study. How did he do it? He did it overwhelmingly with the burden. He got sick, and I wanted to lean into so we can just bite size. Everyone takes a bite, of the food that we prefer to eat. But like the thing about being sick, I wanted to be woo woo for a little bit. It's related to our chakras, like all the energy systems like aligned in our body. If we don't speak, like I don't speak a lot, it's hard for me to talk because I don't practice it. My throat chakra is pretty dry. It's pretty like closed off. I never practice. So, but like community is our first chakra. I was thinking about this last night before going to bed. The first chakra that we have is about belonging and community. We cannot do anything else unless we feel like we belong to something. So that's what
Yeah.
like part of the collective responsibility of those who choose to take up on this journey. It's our job to build that community because people are like lurking around in the shadows. They're wandering on their own. They're so lonely. There's a lot of people who just don't feel like they belong, and we can opt for that space. Feel like, you know what? You can be a loner with me, or you can feel like you don't belong by
Right.
just listening to us chat about Mr. Rogers. Like there's different ways to redefine it because technology is amazing in this way, but at the same time, we have to filter through like all the chaos that people are looking for. So like we're the antidote. We are the antidote to the chaos, which is a very big burden to carry. So here you go.
I
Here's the
think we're all
burden.
chaotic, but I get what you're saying.
Chaotic burden. Chaotic positivity.
Yes. No, but I love that too, and it's also a way to balance. I've always said this with this podcast before. We talk about movies, and I come in with like the film aspect, and I do have some psychological background, but it's not as well developed. Liz over here is the doctor of us all, so she can come in and be like, "No, I know all the things. I just graduated. I know the stuff." And then like Boone, you also come like with a more holistic approach too. And you have so much knowledge behind you. So it's like we all like kind of balance each other, and that's how a true community should be, is building each other up and supporting each other. And that's how your community grows, is by the support and how much you can reach out and like give and receive. So
Mhm.
You know what's sad though is that a lot of the times, even if we come from a very supportive family, um, I think there is maybe like a sense of shame when asking for help or receiving help. Because
yeah.
even though I am doing a non-profit, like we have this joke. I have a joke with my brother, and I often say, yes, I am just like manipulating people and do all these things. And in reality, I'm not doing any of that. I'm just encouraging people to come and help me because I can't do it all, right? And I'm like, yes, I am like making a plan to get rich, yes. But it's because I want the money so I can do things for the community. So it's not. So like I just wanted to, to be evil or whatever. But because there is this sense of vulnerability that doesn't sit well with us. Um, and oftentimes we're shamed by other people when we do speak up. Um,
Yeah.
so that's sad. I don't know. I never know how to end my
That's the
points.
comment.
They're
I will
pretty.
evaluate your response and no, I think these are all phenomenal points though, and I think we are coming to a natural close to this, because we can only we can praise Mr. Rogers all day, every day, for the good and wholesome he has done for the community. But as Boone said, we need to pass on the torch. You know, it needs to happen.
But
So
sorry, interrupt because I want to talk now. No,
all you've been doing is talking.
no. But I think sometimes it is not possible or it's not within sort of like or I want to say skill level but like our nature to be that sort of community leader, right? That sometimes is needed, but we can always be the Mr. Roger that we need, right? We can be the Mr. Roger for us.
Mm,
So we can
mm.
create a safe space for ourselves. We can create that community that we need, even if nobody else is doing it for us, right? We can provide that for ourselves. For kiddos, can't really do that. But as adults, we had more ability to be able to do this, right? And so one of the things that I like about or I heavily emphasize because my brother sometimes edits the videos and he said like you talk too much or like you have a lot of tangents. He just came home and he just looked at me like, what, you talking about me? And I'm like, yes, I am talking about you. um and then he said like, let's cut the tangents, and I'm like, no, because I want people to see what it's like to live in my brain, my ADHD brain, and to be like, that's fine. Like, it's not a big deal, if I go off tangent and the episode is like 2 hours long because I just babble about things, But like, that's sort of like that's who I am, and that's okay, right? But we don't have. Sometimes we live in communities where that's not possible, where we don't have anyone, so we have to do it for ourselves, right? And
Mhm.
I really like setting the example. So now I'm going to put you both again on the stand and I'm going to ask you, what is the last thing that you did to be the Mr. Rogers in your life? Not your community, just your own personal life.
I plead the fifth.
Damn, we'll talk about this later when I do both your profiles.
When you're grading
Uh,
us. No, but
I'm assessing all the time.
but I think it's a fantastic thing for us to reflect on because and I only brought it up because I just came back from therapy and that's something I'm working on. But I'm not perfect, but then I started thinking about when was the last time I took a break. I don't remember, like when was the last
Mm.
time I did self-care. I was like taking a shower, else. But like nothing like super extra, like nothing that like was I was taking care of myself or providing that space for me to do it. So that's why I wanted you to do it for me.
Hmm.
Because I had no answer.
My
Oh, I
answer.
know I know I'm fucked, and I just can't. So like, that's my own issue. I know that's my issues.
But see,
We're gonna have to
I
have
mean,
separate
it's
groups for that.
it's it's great for us to talk about it. Like this is why I love like talking with you guys, because a lot of the things we talk about, I'm like, oh yeah, that's a good reminder. Hold on, like I need to start doing some of this stuff, and yeah, we kind of do forget because we're so busy doing all the other stuff in our life, to try to be Mr. Rogers for someone else, but we also need to remember that we need to do it for ourselves as well.
So I have one for myself. I will usually be the hand-me-down queen in my family. I have everyone's junk. Like I have my cousin's old clothes, my sisters, my mom's, my aunt. Everybody gives me their stuff, and like I feel burdened to keep it all. I feel
Mhm.
somewhat grateful, but a lot of it doesn't fit me because I didn't choose it. It's not my body size. But people,
Right.
and I've like had parts of my life where I didn't make a lot of money, so people are like, "Here, Booney, like just take it. We don't need it. You wear it." I'm like, "Thank you. I'm grateful." But like now, like I don't know what my fashion sense is. And so like I'm relearning my identity in terms of like not always being in my head because I think a lot, right? So I'm learning to embrace the sensory of this. I bought myself a cardigan because I thought it was soft. I thought it's
Aw.
pink and pretty and it feels so nice to like just touch. I've been wearing it the whole week. Like I love it so much. And in the beginning, I used to feel so guilty of like pampering myself. Like, no, I have like 10 things I wear every week. That's it. It's the same 10 things. Like, so I think I'm okay with buying myself an extra cardigan. So yeah, that's me
Right.
pampering myself.
Yeah. Yes, yes. Great job. I bought
That's
chocolate
Thank
right
awesome.
now. I haven't eaten it though. You know what would be good self-care, and I think this is when it's very important to like we're talking about community and talking to the community. So I would like to hear, because this is going to go on YouTube eventually, right?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so please write in the comments whether you think that Hope should give me one of those Lego toys so I can put it right here, because it will look, how awesome would it look? See, I have a Beauty and the Beast thingy, I have a Groot over there, and then like my cups are like baby Groot, baby Yoda, but I don't have anything over here.
You know what?
Please vote
I'm
me.
about to get I'm about to get my bonus at work. I'll buy you a fucking Lego set. How about that?
No, I want that. I want you. I want that.
No,
oh,
I built them.
damn.
I'm just kidding, but do vote in the comments. Which one do you think will look better, the white one or the other one? Is it Cody's helmet? Is that who it is?
Yes, it's Commander Cody and Darth Vader.
Yeah, either one. I like both. If you had Mando's helmet, I would have like totally stolen it by now, but you don't.
No, my boyfriend Jacob has the Mando helmet, and I have those two. I have Princess Leia's Bush helmet from episode 6, and I have just other Legos. I like to collect the helmet ones.
I want Thanos's like gauntlet.
Oh, the gauntlet, yeah.
Yeah, I have the power, you guys.
Yeah, I know.
All right, so on that note, I think when we switch over to Legos from Mr. Rogers, I think that's time to close out. Uh, so thank you both for being here. And I just want to remind people, if you could just like, subscribe, all these things, it would be fantastic. I know we have a merch store. We'll have shirts like this, which is for Mind Brain Movies. We also have Jaguar Shark stuff. I'm super excited to roll out this merch and rep. Um, and, just like I said, just like and subscribe, share this with the community. Not only that, check out Boone's YouTube channel. She has amazing, amazing interviews with people, and I'll watch them and I learn so much, and you'll see me in the comments writing everything. And then, of course, last but not least, we have Elizabeth. Support her nonprofit. I
Yes,
know
please.
Boone and I are on the sidelines trying to help her out. Elizabeth is trying to do amazing, amazing things with her nonprofit, going out to the communities for mental health, and just it's amazing. So it's Psych for Geeks for her, Organized Messes for Boone. We'll have links all in the descriptions below. And also, I guess, comment on which one Liz should steal from
Comment,
me.
help the algorithm, comment something, anything, your favorite color, your favorite geekdom.
Yes. And like, okay, last comment. Promise. I think it's important.
Always have to have the last word.
Yes. I think it's important for us to recognize, like I was trying to ask you guys, what's the last little thing that you did, right? And sometimes in order to support another person, all it takes is for you to like or comment, because that can really make an impact. It can have an impact on like
Yes.
how many people see this, how many people can benefit from it. So it's not a little, it might seem like a little thing, but you're actually helping quite a lot. So thank you. And also comment which helmet you would like me to have.
Oh gosh. All right. And with that, we'll say good night.